Have you ever stopped to wonder if the choices you make at a restaurant are actually yours? You look at the menu, scan the prices, feel your hunger guiding you, and tell yourself you're in control. It feels rational. It feels normal. But what if that sense of control is just a comforting illusion? Almost no one notices this point, and that's exactly why it works so well. What seems like a simple financial decision is often shaped long before you even realize you're choosing. Think about how natural it feels to say, "I'll go with this one." We trust our instincts, our preferences, our logic. Yet this is where the game quietly begins to change. Menus aren't neutral lists of options. They're designed to guide behavior, to nudge spending, to make certain outcomes feel obvious. This sounds harmless, but it isn't. Because the same psychology that influences what you order at dinner shows up again and again in your personal finances. Have you ever walked away from a meal feeling like you spent more than you planned, without fully understanding why? If that feels familiar, stay with me. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because this pattern isn't about food at all. It's about how everyday choices, especially the ones that feel normal and harmless, slowly shape your financial behavior. And once you start seeing where that sense of freedom really comes from, it becomes much harder to ignore what's actually happening beneath the surface. And once that idea settles, and it usually brings a strange mix of curiosity and discomfort. Because if something as ordinary as ordering food can be quietly shaped, it makes you wonder how many other normal financial decisions follow the same pattern. Almost everyone has a moment like that, walking out of a place thinking, "I didn't plan to spend that much," but brushing it off because it feels small, everyday, harmless. If you've ever caught yourself there, you're definitely not alone. If this is hitting close to home, I'd really like to hear about it. You can share in the comments a moment where a choice felt natural at the time, but later made you pause and rethink. Those stories matter more than people realize. They help this space feel less isolated and more human. And if this conversation feels worth keeping alive, a simple like actually helps carry it to others who might be living the same pattern without having words for it yet. Subscribing is just a way of saying you want to stay in this kind of discussion, where money isn't just numbers but behavior, pressure, and habits we rarely question out loud. Because from here on, once you start noticing how that sense of control is constructed, it becomes harder to unsee it. And that's where things really begin to shift. Once you really sit with that thought, the whole scene starts to look different. What felt like a simple list of options suddenly turns into a kind of stage. The menu isn't there to help you decide. It's there to guide you, quietly, almost politely. The layout, the spacing, the way certain items catch your eye first, none of that is random. This seems normal, but it isn't. You're not scanning prices the way you think you are. You're reacting to cues, to emphasis, to what's been framed as safe, popular, or worth it. Almost nobody notices this in real time. You see a larger font and your brain reads importance. You see a description loaded with emotion, comforting, homemade, indulgent, and suddenly the price fades into the background. Even the absence of a dollar sign matters more than we like to admit. It softens the impact, lowers resistance, makes spending feel lighter than it actually is. This is where the truth gets uncomfortable. You're not comparing value, you're absorbing suggestion. And once that clicks, it changes how you see the entire experience. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the real impact isn't what happens at the table, it's what happens afterward. This same mental process follows you into other decisions, other environments, other moments that feel routine. What's happening here is a shift in mentality, a quiet transformation in how choices are presented, accepted, and justified. Behind the scenes, there's a script playing out, and most of us are part of it without ever seeing the full picture. That's why this matters. It's not about blaming restaurants or feeling tricked. It's about recognizing how easily behavior is shaped when things are designed to feel effortless. Once you start noticing these patterns, the illusion of control begins to crack, and that can be unsettling, but it's also the beginning of awareness. If this perspective is landing for you, write in the comments, "This makes sense to me," and this is where it quietly stops being about lunch. Because that extra $15 you didn't plan to spend isn't the real issue. The real issue is how easily the decision felt natural, almost automatic. You didn't feel pressured. You didn't feel reckless. You felt reasonable. And that's the part that sticks with you, because that same feeling shows up again and again, far beyond a restaurant table. You walk out thinking it was a one-off, no big deal. But the mentality behind it doesn't stay there. It follows you into the dealership where the monthly payment sounds manageable, even friendly. It shows up when the phone plan feels cheap because it's just a bit more than the basic one. It slips into those subscriptions you barely notice because on their own, they don't feel like much. Each choice feels small, harmless, even smart, but together they start shaping a pattern, and that pattern has real impact. Almost nobody connects these dots in real time. We like to believe we're making independent decisions, weighing pros and cons, being practical. But if you're honest, a lot of these choices come from accepting what's presented as reasonable by default. That's the hidden part of the journey. You're not choosing freely as often as you think. You're agreeing with a script that's been written to feel comfortable. That truth can sting a bit because it challenges the idea that we're fully in control of our financial direction. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because once you see how these small decisions stack up, the transformation in your mindset starts to matter more than any single purchase. This isn't about guilt or regret. It's about awareness, about pulling back, the curtain on the backstage mechanics that quietly guide behavior. When you realize it's not about food or cars or plans, but about how decisions are framed and accepted, the whole picture begins to shift. And if this reflection is landing for you, write in the comments, "This makes sense to me." This is where a lot of people get surprised, because the real enemy isn't overspending or lack of discipline. It's comfort. Your brain isn't wired to save money. It's wired to avoid discomfort. It looks for the option that feels safe, reasonable, not too extreme. That's why the middle option feels so right. Not the cheapest, not the most expensive, just comfortable. It feels balanced, smart, almost responsible. But that feeling is doing more work than logic ever does. Think about how often most popular quietly becomes good enough. You're not choosing because it's the best long-term decision. You're choosing because it reduces friction in the moment. No awkward feeling, no second guessing, no fear of missing out. That's the hidden trade-off. The short-term relief masks the long-term impact. And over time, those comfortable decisions stack up in ways that don't feel dramatic, but absolutely reshape your financial journey. Here's the truth most people miss. The brain treats saving as loss and spending as relief, even when the numbers say otherwise. That's why so many choices feel justified in the moment and heavy later on. It's not weakness. It's biology mixed with clever framing. Once you see that, the pattern becomes hard to ignore. The reasonable choice isn't neutral. It's usually the most profitable one for whoever designed the options. Now I want to go even deeper into this, because this isn't about avoiding comfort altogether. It's about recognizing when comfort is being sold as a good deal. When something feels easy, smooth, and obvious, that's often where the real cost is hiding. This shift in mindset doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual transformation, a slow awareness that changes how decisions land in your body before they ever reach your wallet. And if you're starting to see yourself in this pattern, drop a comment saying, "This hits close to home." And that's the part that tends to linger, because once you clock it, you start seeing the same structure everywhere. If it's not the menu, it's something else. Always is. The layout of a website, the way prices are grouped, the default option already selected for you, the plan that's framed as recommended. None of this exists to help you think more clearly. It exists to make decisions feel effortless. And when something feels effortless, we rarely question it. That's the truth hiding in plain sight. We live surrounded by decision architecture, little invisible frameworks that quietly steer behavior, not in a dramatic, movie villain kind of way, but in a calm, friendly, totally normalized way. That's what makes it powerful. You're not forced into anything. You're guided, nudged, encouraged to feel good about choices that weren't really designed with your long-term impact in mind. Over time, this shapes more than spending habits. It shapes mentality. It affects how you trust your instincts, how quickly you say yes, how often you pause. The journey isn't about becoming suspicious of everything, but about noticing patterns before they lock in. Because when you don't see the structure, you tend to blame yourself for the outcome. You think it's willpower, discipline, or luck, when a lot of it lives in the background, quietly influencing how decisions land. Now I want to go even deeper into this, because the moment you recognize this pattern, The question stops being, "Why did I choose this?" and becomes, "Who benefited from this feeling being so easy?" That's where the real revelations begin. And once that question starts following you, it doesn't stay in restaurants. It shows up in contracts, upgrades, renewals, and choices that feel small, but repeat for years. If this thought is sticking with you, leave a comment saying, "I see this now." If you made it all the way here, that already says something about how this landed for you. These aren't easy ideas to sit with, and the fact that you stayed means you're probably starting to notice patterns you didn't have words for before. If this message felt personal in any way, drop a comment saying something like, "This one was for me," or even just, "I'm with you till the end." It helps keep this space honest, and it lets other people know they're not the only ones questioning this stuff. And if this conversation added clarity, or even just shifted how you look at everyday decisions, tapping the like is a simple way to keep this kind of content alive here. Subscribing isn't about numbers or pressure. It's just a way of saying you want to keep going on this journey of awareness, one layer at a time, without the noise. There's a video right here that connects perfectly with what we just unpacked, going even deeper into how these invisible structures show up in real life. Click it and keep going with me over there. This conversation doesn't really stop here.